I was standing in line this week, yesterday, at a Lowe's store, a Lowe's furniture and landscaping and home store, not the grocery store, but the place where you go and you buy all kinds of stuff for your house. And I was standing in line yesterday, and I had an experience that I have had many, many times before when I have stood in line. A woman next to me struck up a conversation. And it was a conversation of complaint. People today are just too casual. Look at the way people are dressed. I thought, is she talking about me? And you could hear in her voice, as you can often hear in other people's voices, this tone of complaint. We're not happy with things as they are. Well, this tone of complaint is very biblical. It is not just a 21st century phenomena. It is very much an ancient part, perhaps, of the human condition. And in these passages from Exodus, and we could read a bunch of other additional passages if we would have liked to, about the Israelites complaining. They are great at it. They are very good at it. And this section in Exodus culminates, in some ways, up into chapter 17, verse 7, where the complaints that have gone on and on and on culminate with this question from the Israelites. Is the Lord with us or not? And you can imagine how that question was raised. Was it polite? Is the Lord with us or not? Is the Lord with us or not? Probably it was in that complaint tone. Are you with us or not? Because we're having a hard time down here. We are hungry and thirsty, and you have brought us out here, and it feels like we're going to die. The human capacity for complaint never runs dry. And I suspect that if you're like me, you engage in this capacity for complaint from time to time. I think I've only complained 6 times so far today. I've complained about the heat, complained about the rain, complained about this and that. Well, here's the interesting thing about these complaint narratives in Exodus. Let's look at Exodus 15 just a little closer. That was the first story I read. The Israelites, of course, have been freed from Egypt. They have come out of that land of slavery. They know that God is with them on some level. They maybe even, the passage just before 15 is Miriam singing a song of freedom. With the ladies and the tambourines. They're free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, they're free at last. And they're filled with gratitude because God has done something for them that they have yet to forget. But they will forget very soon. We forget when we're uncomfortable. So in 15, Exodus 15, the Israelites are in the wilderness of Shur, which historians and geography people tell us is probably an oasis in that era. They have come upon a spring called Marah, which means bitterness. It is water that nobody wants to drink. And the people complained against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink? This is bitter. We can't drink this, and we're dying of thirst." And interestingly enough, God's response is first to provide. There is this event with the stick, and the stick makes the water sweet and drinkable. So God hears their complaints and is responsive. When we're complaining, we're looking for a response, are we not? We want someone to do something. We want something to change when we complain. And so the Israelites complain, and God's first response is to provide. The water is sweet. And you can imagine, there's a lot in the text that's not quite there. You can imagine God saying, "Now just be quiet. I gave you your water, now just be quiet." Because then God has an if-then proposition. Here's the water, and things are going to be okay if you listen to the voice of God, if you do what is right, if you give heed to the commandments, that means prioritize these in your life, and if you keep all my statutes, order your behavior accordingly. God provides, but. Exodus 16 story, much the same. Complaining again. If only we had died back in Egypt. You know, back in Egypt, we had pretty good bread. We had flesh pots. The work was a little inconvenient. The slavery didn't really fit well. It was a little inhumane, but we had bread. We had 2 hots and a cot. Used to have drug addicts come into the detox center in Reading, Pennsylvania, where I used to work, and we always knew the people who came in for 2 hots and a cot. They wanted to rest. Not kick their habit. They wanted to rest. The Israelites kind of remembering, you know, back then we had bread, we had a place to sleep. It wasn't optimal, but we had it. And so now they're vulnerable in their freedom, and they're complaining because back there, at least we had food. They're hungry, and again, God provides. God provides this manna, this bread from heaven, this flaky stuff that dries out in the morning, which we call manhu, which in Hebrew means, what is it? It's manhu. What is it? It's bread. Eat it. It's from God. Eat it. And what God says in this passage is, I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for each day. Only enough for each day. Don't get greedy. In that way I will test them whether they will follow my instruction or not. There goes God again with the if-then. I'll provide. Here it is. But I'm watching to see how you go forward from this moment. A number of years ago, when I used to be able to stay up past 9 o'clock at night, I used to stay up and watch Jay Leno. This is going way back. Late night TV with Jay Leno. And Jay Leno had some famous star, I forget who it was a guy, some famous movie star, who had lost a bunch of weight and looked really good. And Jay Leno really was a pretty good interviewer. He sort of pressed this movie star. He said, "You lost 40 pounds, you look great. How'd you do it? What, did you have like pill or something, a vitamin? How'd you do it?" And the movie star said, "Well, no, not really. Really, I just exercised more and ate less." And Jay Leno said, "Oh, Yeah, no, I know, but what did you have like a milkshake that you drank that kept the weight off? What'd you do? How was it? And the movie star said, Jay, I ate less and exercised more. Jay's like, can't you just give me the pill? One of the basics of any change in our lives, one of the basics of any good therapy, is that we cannot be healed of a bad behavior or a pathology or a mental glitch in our life if the behavior is not changed. We can't lose weight and keep eating ding-dongs for lunch. I've tried it. For the Israelites, the healing of the disease of Egypt, and remember what they were dealing with was not only the fact that they were enslaved in Egypt, but that they had a mentality of enslavement. Their identity had been tied up that they were less than, that somehow they warranted slavery. It's a mindset that they needed to work out of and that Yahweh their God was providing. But healing the disease of Egypt requires coming under the command of a new vision, of a new God, of new rules and commandments and ways of living that are healthy, that lead to life, that lead us to be losing weight and being healthier people and engaging in better habits. And that's what these narratives are all about. How do we change our lives so that we live better, so that we are more faithful, so that we are more courageous, so that we are happier and more satisfied in our lives? And what these passages say that, yeah, you can complain, but if the complaints don't come with personal action to change your reality, the complaints are empty. And we live in that world. Complaint, complaint, complaint. And what we need to add to those complaints are a response. Things are not the way I want them in my life. I'm going to change my behavior so that I can get better. Things are not the way I want them in our nation. I'm going to do what I can do to make this nation better and more compassionate and more responsible. I'm going to do what I can do. And as people of faith, what that points to is taking the gospel teachings of Christ, the bread of life, seriously. To change our behaviors more deeply so that our lives will be part of the new vision for our church, for our families, for our world. So our God can handle the complaints. Our God hears the complaints. Our God responds to the complaints and then says, what are you going to do?